Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunity.
The time is 10 a.m.
Thank you for tuning into the Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service. My name is Brandy, and I'm here with Shiloh. We invite you to listen to our broadcasts both live and on demand. Our live sessions are available on the Blind Community Thrift Store YouTube channel Monday to Friday between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. each week. Additionally, you can access on-demand content through the Audio Reader Network, which offers a wide range of audio materials for the visually impaired community. To explore content from the Audio Reader Network, please visit www.reader.ku.edu. The site provides details about accessing content via Amazon Alexa, Audio Reader Network mobile app, and information on receiving a radio to listen to the broadcasts by KSMU Radio. All broadcasts are played over KSMU's subcarrier airwaves at 67 kilohertz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for information on receiving a pre-programmed radio. This is from the Springfield News Leader. Missouri child abuse investigators overwhelmed as backlogs return, by Steph Quinn with the Missouri Independent. Ashley Allen had worked almost 4 years as a child abuse and neglect investigator for the Missouri Children's Division when she quit in April. Some days it seemed like the printer in her Jasper County office never stopped churning out reports from the state's child abuse and neglect hotline, Allen told the Independent. She'd get 2 or 3 reports each day, more if colleagues called out. Usually she had 24 hours to verify a child's safety. For emergencies, she had 3. Often she found herself driving across the county with little information to guide her search. I have a list of people to call and things to type, but I just got a 3-hour emergency, Allen said. I have to run to Reed's to go find a family with no address and no name. The thing was, she loved the work. She loved advocating for families, and she tried to go above and beyond to work with them to keep kids in their homes when it was safe. A punishing caseload and intensifying pressure to complete checklists and clear cases made the work overwhelming, Allen said. The day she quit, Allen said she felt so anxious she wanted to throw up. It's those emails like, hey, why haven't you done this yet? Allen said. I'm doing 10 other things and I don't feel that case is ready to close yet. The division measures its child abuse and neglect caseloads against a goal of no more than 15 open cases per worker at any given time, the same standard used by national organizations like the Child Welfare League of America to accredit state agencies. Allen had more than 30 open cases when she left. Allen's caseload is no longer unusual, and in parts of the state it would now count as light. Ashley Allen of Joplin, she has dark hair and a magenta First Steps t-shirt on, standing on grass underneath a tree. She quit her job as an investigator for the Missouri Children's Division in April due to an overwhelming caseload. Now she works as a case manager for First Steps, which provides services for families with young children with disabilities. Allen also founded a nonprofit, Community Closet of Joplin, that distributes donated clothing and goods to people in need. Photo by Steph Quinn, Missouri Independent. For most of 2025, data from the Missouri Department of Social Services showed fewer than 10 of the state's 46 judicial circuits averaged more than 15 open cases per worker at the end of the month. At the end of June this year, workers in 21 of Missouri's 46 circuits averaged more than 15 open cases, although that number decreased to 13 in July, the most recent month of available data. Workers in St. Louis County have had the highest average caseloads in the state each month this year. They averaged 89 open cases at the end of June, while St. Louis City workers, averaged 55. At the end of July, the county figure had climbed to 97 and the city's to 58. As workers juggle more reports, it's taking them longer to clear cases, prolonging the division's intervention before a case is closed or referred to the court system. The number of circuits where the average time to close a report over the past 6 months exceeded 45 days more than quintupled, from 4 to 23 between January and July. In St. Louis County, the average case as of the end of July took 144 days, or 4.5 months. State law requires the division to finish investigations within 45 days, and it allows more time only when staff document a specific reason: a pending forensic test, a prosecutor's written certification, a witness who can't be reached. Even then, the law sets a hard limit, 90 days, or 124 reports involving sexual abuse. In St. Louis County, the average investigation took 144 days. Allen said that when workers are spread too thin, it directly impacts children and families. You've got kids to see that may or may not be unsafe, but you don't get around to seeing them because of all the other things that you have to do, and it puts some families on the back burner, Allen said. And there are kids that are safe where we're pestering their families. Children's Division Director Sarah Smith declined an interview request from the Independent. She also declined to comment on submitted questions and current staff turnover rates, caseloads, and efforts to move children in foster care toward reunification or permanent placement, citing a legislative hearing scheduled for August 26th that will cover related topics. The division has struggled with staffing shortages and high turnover for years, but current and former employees interviewed by the Independent said the latest surge in caseloads is being compounded by something else: new rules and increasingly prescriptive policies that require more steps to move cases forward. Workers and supervisors said changes introduced over the past year and a half have added layers of consultation, checklists, and supervisory review while limiting their discretion in working with families. The result, they said, is that cases take longer to close, even as workers are being asked to handle more of them. Workers do not know which way is up. In 2020, citing diminished state revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic, then Governor Mike Parson cut 300 state jobs. Of those, 200 were in the Social Services Department. Almost 100 were in the Children's Division. Former Department of Social Services Acting Director Jennifer Tidball turned down a funding offer from the state Senate to help with staffing. With fewer investigators, turnover of frontline division staff, including investigators, foster care case managers, and hotline workers, reached 55% in fiscal year 2022, and staff in September 2022 told the Independent this job is impossible. The number of backlogged cases statewide surpassed 10,000 by September 2023, with more than 6,000 overdue cases in St. Louis alone. Lawmakers that year approved funding to add back 100 positions after former division director Daryl Missy pitched a plan to tamp down caseloads and shift the division's focus toward preventing kids from going into foster care. By September 2024, the division had cleared 80% of the backlog. At the end of the fiscal year 2025, turnover among frontline division staff was 40%. The backlogs climbed back anyway, and not because the state stopped filling jobs. As of the end of November last year, only 79 positions across the division were vacant. The current state budget this year funds 1,781 field positions, which is the same as last year. Frontline staff interviewed by the Independent point to policy changes enacted over the last year and a half as a major reason cases are taking longer to move through the system. With caseloads and backloads again mounting, the division is poised to restructure its abuse and neglect response team on September 1st to place workers under more centralized state supervision and create specialized career pathways. The changes will not add staff and, according to a January email from the division to the Independent, are intended to help retain workers and create a more tenured, experienced workforce. Ahead of the restructuring, workers said the division has rushed to tackle investigation backlogs by assigning experienced staff from other teams, including foster care case managers, to help with overdue cases, leaving those teams overextended. Daniel Johnston, a supervisor with the division, told the Independent that staff from his office who agreed to temporarily help with investigations earlier this year were asked to stay on as workers quit due to the workload and rapid policy changes. Johnston said he was speaking in an individual capacity because he did not have permission to speak on behalf of the division. As more staff left and the state office did not allow us to replace them, they were asked to do more, Johnston said. The time workers spent on the investigations, Johnston said, took them away from working with children and families to get permanency through reunification, adoption, or legal guardianship. Normally, those workers meet with children and their biological and foster families, providing services, helping families navigate legal processes, and making sure kids' needs are met while in state custody. I feel this delayed cases by at least a few months, Johnston said. There were 12,633 Missouri children in foster care at the end of June, according to state data. That's 11.4% less than September 2021, when the number of kids in foster care peaked at 14,265, but it's 14.4% more than a 5-year low of 11,041 in February 2025. The increase began roughly around the same time the division was rewriting the policies that staff say were designed to keep children out of state custody. One current division employee said workers in their office have so many open cases that they do not know which way is up. The employee spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly and feared retaliation. I think that creates a more dangerous environment for children when you have investigators with 50 cases open and they can't remember what they've done from one case to the next, they said. A statement from the department said restructuring was based on staff feedback and is intended to better balance workloads, provide more focused training and support to team members, and create greater consistency in how we respond to children and families across Missouri. Parents who have experienced assessments or investigations by the division described frequent caseworker turnover and mixed messages due to miscommunication or changing policies. Angel Ornelas of Oakville in South St. Louis County, whose son was placed in foster care in August 2025 because the state determined his medical needs weren't being met, told The Independent her son's caseworker confided to her that she was planning to quit. Ornelas' son, who is still in foster care, has had several caseworkers. She told us she was going to quit because of how many cases were coming in, Ornelas said. She first went from 10 cases as a new person, and so many people were coming in. So now she had 50 cases at her desk. She said, I can't do this, Ornelas said. Restructuring. The restructuring is part of ongoing efforts by the Children's Division to address long-standing problems of staff turnover and high caseloads without increasing funding. In a January email to The Independent, the department described the creation of specialized teams as a way to maximize efficiency within currently allocated funding levels. That has included the expansion of a team focusing on older foster youth and the launch in January of a critical investigation unit, which zeroes in on child fatalities and near fatalities due to alleged abuse or neglect. Right now, workers can be assigned any hotline report within their circuit, from an assessment to see if a family needs services, to address safety concerns, to an investigation involving criminal allegations and close cooperation with law enforcement. Starting in September, they'll start off focusing on family assessments and, with experience, join teams with specialties such as newborn assessments or sexual abuse investigations. And instead of reporting to supervisors in local offices, they'll answer to regional managers leading specialized teams. While staff said they hope the reorganization will lighten their workload, some said that without additional staff hires, they don't see how it could. A November 2025 policy required workers to meet with a supervisor within 72 hours of a potential case of abuse or neglect being assigned, even when they determined the children to be safe. The same memorandum introduced 3 consult guides to structure the meetings and 4 checklists for supervisors to use when reviewing and submitting workers' reports to close cases. 3 current division employees who spoke to The Independent on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retaliation pointed to changes last year to team decision-making meetings. The meetings brought together parents, division workers at the juvenile office, and guardians ad litem at major turning points in families' cases, prior to removals, after kids were moved into temporary placements with relatives, or when foster parents were struggling. The workers said the meetings, which included a neutral facilitator unfamiliar with the case, helped engage parents in safety planning and create stability in foster care. An August 2025 message alerted division staff that they should no longer conduct the meetings prior to removing children from their homes, and indicated they should continue to conduct the meetings within 10 days of a child being placed with a relative through a temporary alternative placement agreement, which is part of a 2020 state law. An April 2026 policy instructed workers to meet with a circuit manager, their boss's boss, whenever families scored at high or very high risk of future child abuse or neglect, according to a required risk assessment form, and they did not recommend either services or a child's removal from the home. Allen said the form can put families under unwarranted scrutiny. There's a lot of things held against families that put some families at high risk that really shouldn't be, Allen said. A point gets added to a family's risk score if a parent was abused or neglected as a child, or if the primary caretaker has a historic or current alcohol or drug problem. Families who have had previous encounters with the division are also scored at higher risk, even if past reports of abuse or neglect were not substantiated. They might be 20 years sober and clean now, Allen said, but for something that happened 20 years ago. Not everyone who tracks this division thinks more workers is the answer. Richard Wexler, executive director of the National Coalition for Child Protection Reform, an advocacy group that argues child welfare systems remove too many children, told The Independent that while he doesn't doubt that workers are overwhelmed, he doesn't think the division needs more staff. Wexler, who disagreed with Missy's approach of hiring workers to reduce backlogs, said the state should invest in concrete assistance to alleviate poverty and services for families faced with substance abuse disorders or mental health conditions. And Wexler said that type of assistance should come from a separate state agency, leaving division workers to focus on families where those services weren't enough. That begins to ease your caseloads, Wexler said, adding, give most workers the chance to do the job, and they're more likely to stick around because they will not burn out the same way. Johnston, the supervisor with the division, said policies are making it harder to help children and families. Leadership needs to give us the tools and staff to do quality work, trust our work, preserve the relationships local circuits have, and get rid of unnecessary barriers that inhibit our progress, Johnston said. I feel like they are doing the opposite of that. This story was first published at MissouriIndependent.com.
P&Z commissions vote to recommend apartment projects. A rezoning that would pave the way for 8 modest apartments units in north central Springfield led off business of the Springfield Planning and Zoning Commission last night with a measure that highlighted some of the impacts of the city's new building standards established last year. In the 500 block of West Locust Street, the request by applicant KDR Real Estate, LLC, was to rezone a half-acre tract to RMX2, mixed density medium, from RSF single-family residential. The commission voted without objection to recommend the rezoning, with Springfield City Council slated to begin its 2-reading approval process on September 8th. In the city staff report, Senior Planner Daniel Neal said the applicant is not proposing a binding site plan, but will develop the design of the building upon approval. They would follow the design guidelines. Those are kind of baked into the code now, Neal said. They are choosing to utilize that method of laying out the site and meeting the code requirements. The code-specific frontage types, access and parking, landscaping and buffering, and subdivision activity required. Neal said in his staff report, there are requirements for porches, windows, and exterior modulation, as well as a roof plan, limits with transparency requirements of 30% for all street-facing facades. Mark Young of Walnut Grove-based Young Engineering, LLC, who said he represented property owner Reed Homes, LLC, said he was pleased to see the new standards and thanked the commission for their role in forging them. I grew up here. I remember what this place was like 60 years ago, Young said. I have seen a lot of development that I don't consider to be really high-quality work. Although Young backs the new standards, he admitted they present challenges. As a designer, I'm now newly challenged to find savings in development costs because the new standards are required things that will cost more, so we're going to see a better Springfield at a slightly increased cost, he said. For the middle class and higher developments, that's not going to be a big problem, but in North Springfield neighborhoods where we are trying to provide housing for folks who are not in those upper income categories, these are challenges for me as a designer to hold those costs way down. The project is half-acre tract and uses a design for 2-story, 8-unit apartment buildings. It's a design adapted from one used in another city, Young said, with units ranging 500 to 700 square feet. Groceries, parks, education, and restaurants are walkable from the building, he said. There's just plenty of opportunity for few people that can't afford high-income places to have a good place to live. He said parking, landscaping, and water detention, all required by the new code, would present a challenge on a small lot, but he could make it work. Asked by Commissioner Dan Scott whether the guidelines requiring a 2-story building would cause him any concerns, Young replied with a simple no. Included in the measure was an amendment to limit the height of the building to 2 stories at a maximum of 35 feet. Veteran housing. A proposed South Central Springfield development at 4285 South Kansas Ave also came before the commission seeking a zoning change. This one for an apartment building with up to 40 units. Some reserved for veterans with disabilities or a history of homelessness. The measure for development called Arnold Place aimed to rezone the property to R MX2 mixed density neighborhood to medium from C MX1 commercial mixed used neighborhood with conditional overlay. In addition to residential uses, the rezoning would permit offices, retail sales, and artisan and innovation spaces on the tract. The Commission voted to recommend rezoning as proposed by the Southland Christian Church of Springfield without objection. The application came without letters of recommendation from Community Partnership of the Ozark, President and CEO Janet Dankard, Missouri State House of Representative Majority Leader Alex Riley, Springfield Area of Chamber of Commerce President and CEO Matt Morrow, Centerstone Southwest Regional President Clay Goddard, Springfield City Manager David Cameron, and local members of the Veteran of Foreign Wars and others. Dankard's letter highlighted the purpose of Arnold Place to address what she termed a critical need. The development will provide high-quality, thoughtful, designed, affordable housing integrated into a welcoming residential community rather than isolating vulnerable populations, she wrote. We believe this approach represents the best practice for long-term housing stability, allowing veterans and individuals with disabilities to live alongside other residents while receiving the supportive services they need to remain successfully housed. The measure is scheduled to have the first of 2 readings by Council on September 8th. The Commission voted to postpone 6 votes at the request of applicants. Another measure, a conditional use permit proposed by the applicant All Things New Housing Solutions LLC, was withdrawn. The Commission voted to recommend a rezoning of 11.5 acres at 3520 East Olive Street across the street from Costco for Legacy Bank and Trust Company. The rezoning would be to general commercial from a planned development to accommodate an unspecific church. A speaker, Lee Spampanito, a property owner who objects to the change, said the church expects 520 congregants during its service. Spampanito's concerns includes traffic increase and possibly a future commercial development to follow as a result of the change. A rezoning of 6 acres was recommended by the Commission for 535 West Weaver Ave. The change requested by Ridge Walk LLC would be a general commercial from commercial mixed-use neighborhoods with conditional overlay. The applicant intends to build a residential and commercial mixed-use development. The Commission approved a preliminary plat of K Point Place at 901 Southwest Bypass as the request of applicant Carleton Resources LLC. 2 separate votes by the Commission also initiated work on a development code amendments and procedure changes. Springfield's nuisance abatement process challenged in court. Martin Mays. Springfield's nuisance abatement process is being called into question in Greene County Circuit Court. A recently filed judicial review request asked that court to weigh in on the city's administrative process for dealing with code violation. The legal action was filed August 6th by RCT Realty LLC, which received several notices concerning the properties at 1522 North Grant Ave, allegedly violating city code regarding dangerous, blighted, and nuisance buildings. The LLC is owned by Krista Hogan, the executive director of the Springfield Metropolitan Bar Association, who is married to Springfield Councilman Abe McGull. According to Missouri's Secretary of State Business Database, RCT Realty is being represented by Brian Fisher, an attorney with Neal and Newman, who has represented clients in several lawsuits against the city, including the most recent lawsuit filed by the Cooper Estates Property Owners Association. The new petition alleges the administration hearing held by the city's Building Development Service did not comply with state requirements. The property owner was not sufficiently notified, and the city did not have an adequate evidence to issue an order against the plaintiff. City Chief Spokesperson Cora Scott told the news leader that the city will refrain from committing due to pending litigation. The city sent out its first letter regarding alleged code violation at the property in May 2025, with subsequent ones in February and March of 2026. In late April, according to the court documents, the city sent a failure notice and the notice of an administrative hearing. In June, an administrative hearing was held and the evidence presented by the city. In early July, the city's hearing officer issued findings of fact and an abatement order, which required the owner to obtain a wrecking permit and either demolish the property or obtain all necessary work permits to bring the building up to code standard. According to the findings of fact issued by the state in the hearing, the structure on the property had a damaged roof. The back door was deteriorated, wood siding was not maintained or weather was resistant, and the exterior wall of the building had holes. The petition argues the city lacked authority to hold the administrative hearing because it had not adopted policies or procedures for such a hearing that have been approved by the court as required by state law. The judicial review request also claims that city's notice of the hearing was improper because it did not include details about how the owner could file an answer. It also alleges the evidence used by the city to find violations of the code was gathered without a warrant and therefore was a result of unlawful search. Additionally, the petition argues that the owner did not fail to comply with the notice sent in March because it only required the plaintiff to begin reconditioning, repairing, and removing any nuisance conditions, not that all the conditions had to be abated by any given date. In the court document, the plaintiff asserts that any alleged nuisance conditions were beginning to be abated prior to the deadline set out in the March notice and had been fully abated prior to the hearing. Through this legal action, RTC Realty is asking for court to reverse the city's findings of fact and assesses cost against the city. Marta Mez covers local government at the News Leader.
This is the Springfield News Leader. Temple Grandin to speak at Nixa Performing Arts Center by Janice Reeser, Springfield News Leader. World-renowned animal behavior expert and autism advocate Temple Grandin will speak at Nixa Public Schools Atos Center for the Performing Arts on April 22nd, 2027. The public event is scheduled for 7 p.m. at Meridian Title Performance Hall, 514 South Nicholas Road in Nixa, according to a community announcement. Tickets for the presentation will go on sale to the general public at 10 a.m. July 29th. Admission is $35 per ticket. Grandin is a professor of animal sciences at Colorado State University and travels extensively to speak with audiences across the United States. According to the announcement, Grandin has written more than a dozen best-selling books and was the subject of the Emmy Award-winning HBO film Temple Grandin, which starred Claire Danes. There's a picture of a middle-aged woman with dark, appears to be short hair, with a black embroidered shirt with a red bandana around the neck. Grandin was also named to Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people, according to the announcement. This story was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Journalists were involved in every step of the information gathering, review, editing, and publishing process.
Healthcare leans into AI. Local employers invest in ambient light listening, other tech to free clinician time. By Mike Collian, reporter. At Springfield Area Healthcare Systems, technology using artificial intelligence aims to allow providers to spend less attention staring at a computer screen and more time focused on patients. Cox Health, along with Mercy Springfield Communities and Boulevard-based Citizen Memorial Hospital, all are investing in ambient listening and AI-driven tools that records conversations between a provider and patient and converts them into clinical notes. Officials say the technology works in the background or on a phone app that organizes medical details from the appointment into the notes, allowing the provider to review and finalize them before they are added to the patient's electronic health record. It's a tool that officials say is intended to improve provider efficiency as well as patient experience. Usage of the technology requires a patient's consent. Dr. Barbara Bunbury, a physician at HealthTracks and a Mercy Family Medicine Clinic, said she began using DAX Copilot in early 2025. DAX, short for DAX, which stands for the Dragon Ambient Experience, is now part of Microsoft Dragon Copilot. It's saving her time and helping her better connect with patients, he said, adding three of the 4 physicians in the clinic are using the technology. After I finish talking with the patient and after I've done my exam and evaluation and given them my assets and plans, I can go back to my office, pull up our medical software, pull up the patient's notes, and it will show a completed office note, she said. It will break down everything that we talked about. Bunbury said while the AI is extremely accurate, she still reviews every note. One of the benefits is that at the end of the day, I don't have 20 something notes to sit down and write, she said. My favorite part of the whole system is that I can just sit and talk to the patients and just look at them face to face. I don't have to be writing down notes. It allows me to have a full attention with the patient, which I appreciate, and I think they do too. The daily time savings for Bunbury's easily exceeds an hour or more, depending on the number of patients she sees. Sometimes I don't have to make any changes and then I'm done, she said. It definitely gives me a little bit more of time to back. Since Mercy began using the technology in 2025, it has freed physicians from administrative burdens and saved them 108,000 hours across the multi state healthcare system, according to a July 2026 news release. Suki AI is the provider for clinical ambient listening at CMH, and Dr. Louis Harris, Chief Medical Information Officer. His use of the technology is taking a burden off of him. It has reduced my fatigue and has allowed me to document much more comprehensively than I was before, Harris said. I think it just allows me to be a lot more complete. Harris said he completed a study on ambient listening involving CMH providers who use the technology as part of the board recertification with the American Academy of Family Physicians. He said providers experience roughly 40% reduction in documentation time. CMH provides a subscription fee for every physician or advanced practitioner provider who uses Suki, which costs up to $350 per month per person. First fiscal year 2026, CMH spent roughly $200,000 on Suki, according to officials. Cox Health and Mercy officials declined to disclose their ongoing AI investments. At Mercy, Bunbury said AI isn't just used for reducing paperwork time. For example, oncology personnel can use the technology to help identify patients who might qualify for various cancer drug studies. Mercy also is using AI technology to assist radiologists to prioritize and analyze imaging studies through ADOC. The platform enables a comprehensive additional review of most diagnostic imaging. It can identify suspected conditions, including brain hemorrhage, cervical spine fracture, lung nodules, and pulmonary embolism, according to the past Springfield Business Journal's reportings. I think the narrative you hear today is that AI is replacing humans, said Cox Health Patrick Murphy, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer. That's really not our approach. Our approach is really that it is not that healthcare needs fewer humans. It's really that the humans we have today, the workers that we have, really spend more time doing the things that only humans can do. That means providers spending more time with patients and removing administrative barriers. Like this counterparts at Mercy, ambient documentation isn't the only way Cox Health is leveraging AI, but it is one of the most visible examples. Using the product dubbed Chart with Art via its electrical healthcare record vendor, Verona, Wisconsin-based Epic Systems Corp. is one example. Murphy noted its employment is in the radiology department. It's embedded into multiple workflows there, summarizing information, consolidating information to help a clinical make a more holistic review and decisions. Murphy said that the focus is measured value for patients, caregivers, and the organization. We are very keen on continuing to make targeted investments in the underlying technology. We're smart around those investments. Just because there may be a compatibility or capacity to do something from an automated fashion, if it's not involving a problem for us and has a measured value, we are not at the point where we are looking to invest in that today. Murphy said Cox Health has multi-layered safeguards to prevent AI-produced mistakes or hallucinations. First and foremost is that we are not using any public module that's not being trained or any of the data that's in our health system, he said, adding that there must be solid evidence of how a model makes a decision. None of the information that we have is going out to your chat GPTs or Geminis or any of those items. The sourcing of the information when an AI tool makes a summary is no different than if a caregiver was depending on a human research assistant. We need you to show your work so that information is always available in any summarization that we have, he said. Adding human judgment remains essential. The human is always in the loop before any information is finalized, and we want to make sure that the person is accountable for that. So healthcare is still people taking care of people, even if we're extending compatibilities with AI. Mercy and CMH officials agreed that humans must continue to be part of the decision-making process. We reduce the risk of hallucinations by grounding AI in trusted information, testing it before using, monitoring it over time, and requiring appropriate human review, particularly when the output could affect patient care. Mercy official says it is an emailed statement. Mercy's Bunbury said she occasionally has patients request that DAX not be used during appointments. Maybe they don't trust AI, they want to talk about something sensitive, and for whatever reason they don't want to have that recorded, she said. That's probably one of the biggest things, is to make sure that the patient information is protected. Mercy officials say patient privacy is fundamental to how the healthcare system evaluates and uses AI. Privacy and security teams with Mercy assess how data is accessed and protected. Oversight continues after AI technology deployment through ongoing monitoring and review. CMH Harris said he believes AI will make an incremental improvements in access over the next few years for patients and providers. Patients will have access more because providers will be less burned out, he said, and adding AI can lead to better healthcare outcomes. The bottom line is not how cool this is or how quick it is or even if it's more efficient, Harris says. Is the patient going to be better? That's what we want.
This is from the Springfield News Leader. Why medications could be making you feel the summer heat even more, by Susan Such, Springfield News Leader. After an extreme heat warning and scorching temperatures this past week, the Ozarks are anticipated to cool down just a little. According to the National Weather Service's Springfield office, we'll likely continue to see weather that feels like it's in the high 90s and low 100s on August 17th and 18th. Dr. Barbara Bunbury, who practices family medicine at Mercy, spoke with the news leader about how certain medications can make people more susceptible to heat and which medications can be affected by high temperatures. The main thing is just awareness of being on medications that put you at increased risk of being affected by heat, Bunbury said, and just taking extra precautions if you're going to be out in the heat. Here's what to know about what medications may make it harder for your body to stay cool, what to do, and how to make sure your medications are safe in the high heat. What medications make it harder to tolerate heat? There are a number of medications that make it more difficult to tolerate heat. Here are some common ones. Heart medications like blood thinners or beta blockers, stimulants like Adderall or Ritalin, anticholinergics, laxatives, diuretics, blood pressure medications like ACE inhibitors, psychiatric medications like antidepressants or antipsychotics, allergy medication like antihistamines and decongestants. How do those medications affect heat tolerances? There are a few different ways that your body deals with heat and tries to maintain its internal temperature. Perspiration or sweating cools the body when the sweat evaporates. Your body also dilates blood vessels under the skin, which allows warm blood flow through those vessels and increases its heat through the skin, and release its heat through the skin. Some medications encourage water loss, which can make dehydration more dangerous, while others affect the body's ability to sweat, the body's temperature, and blood vessel dilation. If someone gets dehydrated, it can also decrease the body's ability to clear certain medications, so it can cause toxicities or increased levels of those medications, which can be harmful, such as blood thinners or lithium, medications that are not uncommon for people to be taking, Bunbury said. If medication affects the body's temperature or ability to cool down while the ambient heat is high outside or in their home, Bunbury said, it can lead to heat stroke, which can be life-threatening. If I'm on one of these medications, how can I stay safe? First and foremost, Bunbury encourages people to know what medications they're taking and the risks associated with them. Even if heat climbs, you shouldn't abruptly stop taking medications. You can maybe go off an antihistamine for a few days while it's hot, but something like a blood thinner or blood pressure medicine, you don't just stop those, Bunbury said. If you're concerned, talk with a doctor who may prescribe a lower dose or change the medication you're taking. In addition to that, Bunbury recommends taking extra precautions, Limit time outdoors during the hottest parts of the day. If you're working outdoors, take breaks inside to cool down and drink fluids. Spend time at places with air conditioning like cooling centers, the library, or the mall. Set up fans in your house. They won't help with air temperature, but they can help sweat evaporate and cool bodies down. Drink plenty of fluids and water. Add some electrolyte solution to 1 or 2 bottles of water if you're sweating a lot, since sweating depletes the body of electrolytes. Avoid caffeinated beverages like coffee, tea, soda, and certain energy drinks, since they have a diuretic effect and can cause you to lose fluid. What are symptoms of heat-related illness? In order to stay safe in the heat, Bunbury encouraged people to be able to recognize heat-related illness symptoms. These can include muscle cramps, confusion, headache, dizziness, heavy sweating, nausea or vomiting, paleness, loss of consciousness. If you start experiencing something like that, you need to get to a cooler environment right away, Bunbury said. Additionally, heat stroke is a potentially deadly heat-related illness, which occurs when the body's temperature is at or above 104 degrees. Symptoms include high body temperature, red hot or dry skin, rapid pulse, throbbing headache, dizziness, nausea, confusion, or unconsciousness. Call 911 immediately if someone exhibits those symptoms. What medications are affected by heat? Certain medications can be affected by heat and humidity, either by damaging the packaging or how well the medication itself works. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, inhalers for those with asthma or COPD can burst if left in hot environments, like car trunks on hot days, and heat can cause EpiPens to malfunction or deliver less epinephrine during an allergic reaction. Prolonged exposure to heat can make insulin and other medications like them less effective. Most medications should be kept in a location that's room temperature or cooler and dry in order to preserve potency. An article by the Baylor College of Medicine advises people not to take medication if it has changed color, texture, or odor after being exposed to heat, even if it has not expired.
Springfield hosting 2 public input sessions on data center regulations. The Springfieldians will have 2 opportunities in the next few weeks to weigh in on how the city approaches data centers. Springfield City Council passed a 120-day administrative delay on data center development in late June. During this pause, city staff are evaluating a long-term policy framework to use when considering data center proposals in the future that will include input from the public. The city, alongside city utilities, will host 2 public engagement sessions, Thursday, August 27th at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Doubletree by Hilton at 2431 North Glenstone Ave, and Tuesday, September 1st from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Library Center's Hatch Auditorium at 4653 South Campbell Ave. According to City News release, the session will include attendees visiting information stations with rotating subject matter experts. Experts will provide information on potential regulation regarding data center, water and electricity usage, sound and air quality, public safety, land use, and potential community benefits. Attendees will be able to ask questions, fill out comment cards, and take surveys on those topics. Information gathered at the sessions will be used to develop recommendations for the long-term policy, designed to balance the protection of the public interest with responsible economic growth. The release noted attendees are encouraged to attend the full 2-hour session to provide feedback on all topic areas. Feedback can also be shared via email to city@springfieldmo.gov. At a hotline with a voicemail box will be set up in the future. By the end of the 120-day period, any findings and recommendations will be presented to the Springfield Planning and Zoning Commission and Council for consideration. When Council discussed the 120-day administrative delay, City Manager David Cameron said that there has been a data center application submitted for an existing building with mixed-use zoning, according to previous newsletter reporting. Springfield Newsletter.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. Springfield mom also charged in child abuse case that left 6-week-old infant with serious injuries. According to charging documents, Star Vesey knew the infant was limp and staring off into space, but she waited nearly 5 hours before calling 911, by Jackie Rewald. A week after a Springfield father was arrested and accused of intentionally shaking, striking, and dropping his 6-week-old infant face first onto a hardwood floor, the child's mother has also been charged with a felony. According to charging documents, Star Mariah Vesey waited 4 hours and 55 minutes to call 911 for her infant child, who had been unresponsive. Vesey, 19, is charged with a Class B felony of first degree, endangering the welfare of a child, serious physical injury. There's a picture of a woman with dark brown hair and a purple shirt in front of a gray wall. The baby's father, 19-year-old Kenai Kelly, is charged with a Class B felony of child abuse. He was arrested and booked into the Greene County Jail on August 7th. Prosecutors filed the felony complaint against Vesey on Saturday, August 15th. The defendant acknowledged the victim's condition was abnormal, as she admitted that the infant was limp, not eating, and showing signs he had never shown before, the prosecutor wrote in Vesey's charging documents. When EMS arrived at the residence, the victim was cold, unresponsive, had retinal hemorrhages in both eyes, a bruise on his forehead, and petechial marks on his torso and extremities. The victim had to be life-flighted to St. Louis Children's because of his severe brain bleeding and swelling. He was found to have multiple rib fractures as well, the prosecutor wrote. The defendant's significant delay in seeking medical treatment for the victim made the victim's critical condition even worse. Police, Dad intentionally dropped infant face first onto hardwood floor. According to court documents, Kelly initially denied hurting the infant, identified as V1, to police, but later admitted he played too rough with the victim. Kelly allegedly admitted to striking the baby in the face using the baby's own hands, shaking the victim forcefully by the legs, and intentionally dropping the victim face first onto the hardwood floor from the height of a couple of feet. There's a picture of a young man in front of the gray wall with long black hair and a black t-shirt. Kelly admitted he was angry at the time and acknowledged seeing abnormal bruising, but didn't call 911. According to the probable cause statement for the charge against Vesey, she allegedly told police that she placed the infant in his crib around midnight, July 27th, and didn't check on him until around 10 a.m., July 28th, and that the baby didn't wake for his usual feedings and appeared unusually lethargic. According to the statement, Vesey told the officer the infant was refusing to eat, grunting, and had difficulty moving his right arm. Vesey allegedly told the officer she tried to force-feed the infant around 12:30 p.m. on July 28th and observed abnormal behavior, including limpness and the infant staring off into space. She hoped he would improve after a nap. She allegedly told the officer she contacted the victim's pediatrician around noon and waited for a call back rather than calling 911. However, a search of Vesey's cell phone allegedly revealed she actually called the pediatrician a few hours later than she told police. She stated she hoped he would improve after a nap and did not call 911 sooner due to being scared and waiting for transportation, the officer wrote in the statement. Based on the history recovered from Vesey's cell phone, she appeared to have concerns for V1 when he was only 3 weeks old, evidenced by her search asking why her 3-week-old would have bruises. According to the statement, Vesey told police that she routinely checked the victim for injuries, and Kelly, the father, told police he believed she did so because of his anger issues. These observations indicate an ongoing pattern in which Starr recognized potential signs of harm but failed to take appropriate protective action, the officer wrote in part. This pattern ultimately resulted in injury to V1 and demonstrates Starr's disregard for V1's safety and well-being. Kelly is being held in jail with no bond. Vesey was booked into jail on Saturday, August 15th, and is being held on a $30,000 bond. Online court records did not list an attorney for either parent.
Heat is on. Steamy summer temps, test food truck, and staff stamina. As summer weather proves to be a popular time for outdoor events, local food trucks are present for most of those celebrations. However, operators of the mobile business say they're sweating it out lately amid a string of 90-plus degree days in what is typically the busiest season for their ventures. Springfield's average high in August is nearly 90 degrees, according to the National Weather Service. However, temperatures through much of the month have roughly been meeting or exceeding that mark. Richard Hyde, co-owner of the Chop Shop Burger, said the forecasting temps did not look any cooler reading beyond the middle of the month. In business for over 3 years, Hyde said the summer's weather has been a challenge for his mobile eatery, which serves a variety of burgers, nachos, and sweet treats such as fried Oreos and Twinkies. While he does have air conditioning in his trailer, it also contains a lot of heat generating equipment that includes 2 fryers, a 30-inch grill, and 2 cheese pumps for the nachos. The heat outside affects everything, whether it's your equipment or even people not wanting to get out into the heat. He said, noting that hot temperatures recently overheated his generators, causing them to keep shutting off. Hyde recently purchased a new trailer for about $40,000, which he said is better insulated than the old one, which struggled to keep the cool air from air conditioners from escaping. But it's going to be hot in there even with the AC running, he said, noting he's keeping his older trailer, but it is temporarily closed for renovations. Beyond the equipment impact is the toll the heat can take on the people working in the food trucks. Hyde, who employs 7 of the Chop Shop Burgers, said heat-related illness impacted his staff last month. Over the 4th of July holiday, I had 2 of my employees get sick due to just sheer heat in the trailer on 2 different events, even with the AC running. Hyde said he stresses that his employees stay hydrated. He also keeps an ice bucket in the trailer. Staffers dip towels in it to keep cool. And Giotto Eatery and Catering LLC opened in 2024 and serves Italian cuisine. For Kelly and Hugh Ed Dampier, the married owners' summer heat in their food truck can be very, very unbearable. Kelly said their fryer essentially acts as a 400-degree heater in addition to their stovetop and steamer. While their eatery has air conditioning, its effectiveness is impacted if they have to run it on a generator instead of plugging it into a power source. If you had an air conditioner that was really efficient, if you had an air conditioner that was really efficient, it's not efficient at all on a generator, she said, estimating the truck can get as hot as 130 degrees on summer's hottest days. It takes it down several notches, if you will. The Dampiers said that they balance their money-making potential with staying safe in the heat at any event this time of year. They decided to drop out of a planned multi-day appearance in Pineville earlier this month as temperatures were expected to hover at or near 100 degrees. If we're going to be at an event where we don't think we're going to make very much money, then that's going to be something we're probably going to have to say, we're sorry, but it's too hot. We can't come. We have to take our health into consideration, Kelly said, adding she and her husband are both in their late 50s and are Giotto's sole employees. Additionally, Ed has type 1 diabetes and can physically get sick in the heat. She said, in fact, that happened recently while in Mount Vernon, but the couple pushed through that day. She said they try to take breaks as often as possible in the air conditioner of their pickup truck. For us, that's a lot of money, making more than $1,000 in a day, she said, of their typical haul in the Lawrence County city. Keeping our customers there is extremely important to us because they are our followers, she said, noting Giotto usually visits Mount Vernon every other week. They look for us to come there, so we don't want to lose them. While some local food trucks occasionally use social media to announce heat-related schedule adjustments, neither Giotto nor the Chop Shop Burger have ever closed on a particular day because it got too hot. There are days we would like to, but no, we never have, Ed said. Still, he said that couple always weigh the cost of business financially and physically. We would probably want to do at least $500 on a regular basis, he said, of their desired money-making goal for visits to towns or events. The Chop Shop Burger was stationed August 11th in the parking lots of Cox Health Farrell Duncan Clinic across from Cox Health South Hospital. Hyde said the hot temperatures were likely a contribution to his sales being around 20% lower than normal on the location. Still, it surpassed his $500 goal. I don't ever want to do less than 500, he said, of the sales at any given stop for his trailer. So whether that's an hour or 6 hours, to me, that's your break-even point. Hyde said his monthly goal in the trailer is to cook at least 20 times. Honestly, I don't think we've cooked less than 23 times per month, he said. While Hyde has already spent money on a new trailer, the Dampiers are considering an air conditioning upgrade. They've started researching for more efficient units, but it would require drilling holes in the back of the trailer, Kelly said, estimating the air conditioning unit would be $400 to $500. If we're going to be drilling holes in the trailer, I want it to be well worth what we would be gaining if we did that.
This is in the Springfield Daily Citizen. Former Children's Division worker, 4 others charged after toddler found resembling Holocaust survivor in Clever. The mother, 3 other residents of the household, and a former Children's Division caseworker have been charged with felonies by Zoe McIntyre. 5 people, including a former Children's Division worker, have been charged with abuse or neglect and endangering the welfare of a child after police say a 2-year-old girl in Clever last year was found emaciated and in critical condition. 4 adults and 2 children, including the 2-year-old, were living together in the 300 block of Mitchell Avenue in Clever. A prosecutor wrote that the residence had been condemned and deemed uninhabitable after the 2 children were placed in protective custody. The main victim, a 2-year-old referenced as Confidential Victim 1 or CV1 in court documents, was confined to a room crawling with insects where she slept on a soiled mattress on the floor, according to probable cause statements. CV1 was hospitalized due to severe neglect and malnutrition and had suffered brain bleeds and eye injuries indicative of past abuse, according to the statements. Notably, the hospital staff compared CV1's physical and medical state to that of a Holocaust survivor, an investigator wrote. All 4 adults who were living in the house were charged with felonies in connection to the child's alleged abuse and neglect, in addition to an Ozark resident named Christine Moore, who was working for the Missouri Department of Social Services Children's Division. Moore is accused of lying to investigators, which impeded the prosecution in this case. A spokesperson for DSS stated Friday that Moore is no longer working for the department. There's a picture of a woman with red hair and a bright pink top. Miracle McKay. Miracle McKay, born in 2004, was arrested at her boyfriend's Clever residence on December 15, 2025. Police responded to a report from the Christian County Children's Division that a juvenile was living in unsanitary living condition and was severely malnourished. A police officer observed food in the house, including a box of soft baby food, the probable cause statement says. A witness claimed that McKay and CV1 were always in McKay's room and rarely came outside. Despite food being available, the officer observed that the victim was very malnourished, according to the report. McKay was charged with 7 counts of abuse or neglect of a child and 7 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. 3 other residents of the house were also charged in relation to the neglect. Jaden Maples, McKay's boyfriend, was charged with 6 counts of abuse or neglect of a child and 6 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. Marissa Castor and Andrew Seiler, a couple who lived in Maples' residence together with their baby, were each charged with 1 count of abuse or neglect of a child and 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. On August 14th, McKay was listed on the Christian County Jail's inmate roster. She is being held on a $25,000 bond. McKay's co-defendants were not listed on the jail roster. Publicly accessible court records do not indicate that any of the defendants had previously been charged with a felony in Missouri, although Maples was cited and pleaded guilty to animal neglect in Clever in 2025. An investigator with the Missouri State Technical Assistance Team reported that medical staff found CV1 had multiple subdural hematomas, brain bleeds in different stages of healing, and retinal hemorrhaging. Residents of the house allegedly told police CV1 was largely confined to one room, but she had been allowed to come out of the bedroom to eat together with the household on a couple occasions. Maples said on December 14, 2025, CV1 was placed in a high chair wearing nothing aside from a diaper, and he could see she had deteriorated badly, according to a probable cause statement. Suspect 2 attempted to prop up CV1 in an upright position multiple times, but each time she would fall or slouch back into an unnatural position due to not having the physical strength to sit up, an investigator wrote in the statement. Probable cause statements also detail the conditions that police say made the house uninhabitable. Sections of the ceiling falling into rooms, holes in the floor covered with plywood, mouse feces, trash thrown about the entire house, and cockroaches and insects crawling throughout the room CV1 was confined in. Probable cause statements in the cases lay out various allegations, mainly focused on McKay and Maples. McKay was accused of isolating CV1 in a room under a blanket on a dirty mattress for weeks at a time. One of the co-defendants accused Maples of hitting, kicking, and shaking CV1. Castor and Seiler are accused of not reaching out to authorities despite witnessing the neglect. An indictment filed in Christian County in June 2026 indicates that Christine Moore was a Children's Division worker assigned to McKay and Maples' residence. A grand jury indicted Moore on 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, 1 count of abuse or neglect, and 1 count of tampering with physical evidence. Moore allegedly made a chronological narrative in Children's Division documents which she knew to be false, with the purpose to mislead an investigator. This indictment states that the narrative impaired or obstructed the prosecution of McKay, Maples, Seiler, and Castor. Reached by phone on August 14th, a DSS spokesperson, Bailey Watts, said she could not comment on the case. What I can tell you is that the individual is no longer with the Department of Social Services, Watts said. Probable cause statements indicate that Moore was completing weekly visits to McKay and Maples' residence before the children were placed in protective custody, although it is not clear what caused the Children's Division to initially get involved. Maples told police that the caseworker was assigned in September 2025 after former roommates became angry with him and McKay and hotlined them in retaliation, according to one probable cause statement. Another statement references investigators being aware of an incident in summer of 2025 when Maples allegedly struck CV1 hard enough to leave a full-sized handprint on her buttocks area.
This day in history, on August 18th, the 19th Amendment ratified thanks to 1 vote. A dramatic battle in the Tennessee House of Representatives ends with the state ratifying the 19th Amendment of the United States Constitution on August 18th, 1920. After decades of struggle and protest, the suffragettes across the country, the decisive vote is cast by a 24-year-old representative who reputedly changed his vote after receiving a note from his mother. America's suffrage movement was founded in the mid-19th century by a woman who had been politically active through their work in the abolitionist and temperance movements. In July 1848, 200 women suffragists, organized by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretta Mott, met in Seneca Falls, New York, to discuss women's rights. After approving measures asserted the right of women to educational and employment opportunities, they passed a resolution that declared it is the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves their sacred right to the elective franchise. From proclaiming a woman's right to vote, the Seneca Falls Convention was subjugated to public ridicule, and some backers of women's right withdrew their support. However, the resolution marked the beginning of the women's suffrage movement in America. When Carrie Chapman Catt took over from Susan B. Anthony as president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association in 1900, she prioritized the push for a constitutional amendment to give women the vote. At the outset of the World War I, Nassau urged women to prove their worth to the war effort, while the National Women's Party, led by Lucy Burns and Alice Paul, engaged in civil disobedience, directly targeting President Woodrow Wilson, who with protest outside the White House. Finally, facing growing pressure on multiple fronts, Wilson called a special session of Congress in May of 1919 and personally appealed for women's suffrage. Having voted down the amendment 6 times, Congress finally approved it, sending it to the states for ratification. By March of 1920, just 1 more state was needed to ratify the 19th Amendment in order for it to become law. The Tennessee General Assembly took up the question in August, and suffragists and anti-suffragists bore down on Nashville. The state Senate voted convincingly to ratify, but the House failed to do so twice. By 2 votes of 48 to 48, State Rep. Harry T. Byrne, a 24-year-old from McMinn County, was one of the nay votes. Reportedly had intended to vote for ratification, but had been persuaded not by the telegrams from his constituents and members of his party. Just a 3rd vote was set to begin. Byrne received a letter from his mother, Feb Esminger Byrne, that read in part, "Hooray, and vote for suffrage, and don't keep them in doubt. I've been watching to see how you stood, but have not seen anything yet. Don't forget to be a good boy." On the third vote, Byrne changed his mind. Thanks to his single vote, the House approved the amendment. Tennessee ratified it, and the Constitution was changed to guarantee women the right to vote. On August 26th, the amendment was formally adopted into the Constitution by proclamation of Secretary of State Banbridge Colby. Despite the ratification of the amendment and the decade-long contribution of black women to achieve suffrage, poll taxes, local laws, and other restrictions continued to block women and men of color from voting. It would take more than 40 years for all women to achieve voting equality.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. Youth Connect Center and GLO Center partner to expand shelter for Springfield at-risk youth by Jackie Rewald. The Youth Connect Center, a program of Foster Adopt Connect, and the GLO Center, which serves the LGBTQIA+ community in the Ozarks, announced earlier this month they are collaborating to increase overnight shelter from 3 to 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday. The Youth Connect Center, YCC, is a drop-in center in downtown Springfield for youth 13 to 21 years old. In addition to providing resources and a safe place for youth and their families, the YCC also operates an 8-bed emergency shelter for teens and young adults up to 21. According to a news release, local youth have accessed the shelter more than 1,000 times since it opened in April 2024. Previously, the YCC emergency shelter was open on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights and was always full on those nights. Beginning later this month, volunteers from the GLO Center will begin staffing the shelter on Tuesday and Thursday nights. This partnership will replace GLO's existing crisis cold weather shelter with a year-round opportunity for our volunteers to support youth experiencing housing instability, Aaron Kitchens, the GLO Center's executive director, said in a release. We're excited to work alongside the Youth Connect Center and Foster Adopt Connect to expand the number of nights that safe and LGBTQ affirming emergency shelter is available to Springfield youth. Our volunteers have always been at the heart of GLO's work, Kitchen said, and this partnership gives them another meaningful opportunity to make a direct difference in the lives of young people in our community. For more information on how to help, please visit fosteradopt.org or glocenter.org.
Today in history, Roanoke Colony found deserted. John White, the governor of the Roanoke Island Colony in present-day North Carolina, returns from a supply trip to England to find the settlement completely deserted. White and his men found no trace of the 100 or so colonists he left behind, and there was no sign of violence. The Roanoke Island Colony was the first English settlement in the New World, and the mystery of its collapse has never fully been solved. Among the missing were Eleanor Dare, White's daughter, and Virginia Dare, White's granddaughter, and the first English child born in America. August 18th was to have been Virginia's 3rd birthday. The only clue to their mysterious disappearance was the word Crotonian, carved in the palisades that had been built around the settlement. White took the letter to mean that the colonists had moved to Crotonian Island, some 50 miles away, but a later search of the island found none of the settlers. The Roanoke Island colony was founded by English explorer Sir Walter Raleigh in August 1585. The first Roanoke colonists did not fare well, suffering from dwindling food supplies, Indian attacks, and in 1586 they returned to England aboard a ship captained by Sir Francis Drake. In 1587, Raleigh sent out another group of 100 colonists under John White. Wright returned to England to procure some more supplies, but the war with Spain delayed his return to Roanoke. By the time he finally returned in August 1590, everyone had vanished. In 1998, archaeologists studying tree ring data from Virginia found that extreme drought conditions persisted between 1587 and 1589. These conditions undoubtedly contributed to the demise of the so-called lost colony, but where the settlers went after they left Roanoke remains a mystery. One theory has them being absorbed into the Native American tribe known as the Croatians.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. Springfield's Ririco reborn as melting borders blending South Korean, Argentinian, and American flavors. I couldn't have done this 20 years ago in Springfield, said owner Angel Kim by Juliana Goodwin. If you're looking for something different to eat in Springfield, try Melting Borders Kitchen and Sips. Located in the former Ririco Brazilian Grill, it's veteran restaurateurs Angel Kim's new venture. It opens Tuesday, August 18th, and the menu is a kaleidoscope of flavors and cultures. Want chicken fried steak? He has it. Craving beef bulgogi or japchae street noodles, which are Korean glass noodles made from sweet potato starch? You'll be delighted as you slurp the sesame-kissed threads mixed with thinly sliced bell peppers, vegetables, and strips of steak. Or try the tender steak tacos made with Casey strip, topped with vibrant pink pickled onion, cojito cheese, fresh salsa, and thick sliced avocado. Whatever you want, I want it to be the best of that dish, Kim said. If you want chicken tenders, I want it to be the best. If you want Korean, I want it to be the best. It's all about the ingredients. And if you order a spicy Korean dish, know it's going to be very spicy. I couldn't have done this 20 years ago in Springfield, Kim said. The restaurant scene has exploded, and consumers are far more willing to try new things. He points to the success of Corner 21, which is not American Chinese food, it's real Chinese food. If you order a Korean dish, it's going to be authentic, like kimchi pancakes or traditional Korean rice cakes. I got tired of going to big cities to get my Korean fix, he said. Kim has owned numerous restaurants in town in the last 25 years and says this will be his last one. Ririco closed in February after nearly 20 years in business. They had serious plumbing issues and had to gut the building, so he decided to start something different. Kim's family originated in Korea but moved to Argentina, where he was born. Then a former Dury University president went to Argentina to recruit international students, and Kim was one of the students he brought back. He moved to Springfield in 1999 as a pre-med student, but in 2002 he decided he wanted to open a restaurant instead and started the Argentina Steakhouse. It was Springfield's first introduction to Argentine food. If you were a former customer and loved it, then know that the filet mignon and Casey strip on the menu at Melting Borders are made in that same style with the same seasonings and chimichurri sauce. Chimichurri is a herbaceous sauce with garlic and oil used on steaks in South America. When he started that first restaurant, Kim had a chef from Argentina, but when that chef left, Kim took over in the kitchen. He went to Korea in 2003 to study the craft of Korean food. His instructor, Son Kang, made the aforementioned sesame-kissed noodles. I thought, I need to talk to that girl, Kim said. That dish brings back a lot of memories. They married a few years later and have 3 daughters. His wife loves to cook, and many of the recipes are her own, although she doesn't work at the restaurant. She did help her husband open Ririco when it debuted. She's busy with their daughter who plays hockey. In fact, being a family that's on the road all the time for games is another inspiration for Kim. When families travel for their children's activities and end up in a new city, they want something familiar or comforting that is close to their hotel. So this menu will meet a variety of cravings for similar families. Melting Borders is across the street from a hotel, and Kim had a soft opening last week. He said one night 20 cowboys came in and 18 ordered the chicken fried steak. They raved about it. Kim has opened many restaurants in town, including Blue Sesame, The Hill, because he loves Italian food from The Hill in St. Louis, Novo Asian Bistro, and Frida Mexican cuisine, so he's experienced in different cuisines. With his last restaurant, Kim is going out with a bang. Although many restaurants offer fajitas, they will make tableside fajitas. I love the tableside fajitas, $18.95, because it makes the whole dining room smell amazing, said manager Rachel Sush. They come with chicken or steak, but you can customize them and add sausage or other ingredients. You can also order a flaming margarita. He has a nice selection of margaritas like a mango habanero and several sangria options. My favorite is the apple cinnamon sangria because it tastes like apple pie. I've never had a sangria that tasted like that, Shush said. Here's a picture of something deep fried with, looks like sweet potato fries with different sauces on it. It says the base is a fish that, wow, it's $21.95. It's encrusted in panko, fried, and served drizzled with teriyaki glaze, lemon Cajun sauce, and wasabi aioli. Photo by Juliana Goodwin. Some dishes wow, like the basa, a freshwater catfish. It's a huge fillet that is panko encrusted, fried, and drizzled in teriyaki glaze and wasabi aioli. It's light, crispy, and delicious. There's a small lunch menu, including a one-trip queso and salad bar for $8.95, or teriyaki chicken, which is Sucha's favorite dish. It's amazing, and I'm a picky eater, she said. Sush started working for Kim when she was 15 as a hostess and worked at the Hill in Rico. Melting Borders is large with capacity for 290. They have an upstairs that seats up to 60, and it can be booked for the traditional Brazilian barbecue or other events. I know some people are disappointed we are not doing the Brazilian, but they can rent the upstairs if they have at least 30 people for the Brazilian grill, she said. Sucha is excited to reopen and see customers again. I love seeing them happy when they get their food, she said. As for Kim, he's ready for his final restaurant venture in Springfield and wants it to be his best. This is melting flavors, and that is what Springfield is about. Steaks, comfort food, Mexican food, Asian food, Kim said. I'm very proud of what we serve. Find it. Melting Borders, 3371 East Montclair Street, Springfield, 417-881-8882. Grand opening is August 18th. They serve global fare and are open for lunch and dinner.
What is today known for? August 18th. National Fajita Day celebrates the Tex-Mex dish of grilled skirt steak, onions, and peppers served with flour tortilla, a preparation traced to Mexican vaquero ranch workers in South Texas in the 1930s and popularized by Nympha Rodriguez Lorenzo at her Houston restaurant in 1973. National Couples Day was created to celebrate romantic partnerships and to encourage couples to take a dedicated day to appreciate others, or to appreciate each other, to put down their phone, share a meal, and mark the relationship they are building. Indonesian Constitution Day marks August 18th, 1945, when Indonesia adopted its first constitution. A one day after independence was proclaimed, establishing the legal framework of the new republic. Long Tan Day marks August 18, 1966, when Australian and New Zealand forces fought the Battle of Long Tan in Vietnam, a 6-hour engagement in which 108 NZEC soldiers held off a force of approximately 2,500 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army troops. A sizzle, a partnership, a constitution, and a 6-hour battle. Some other holidays that might be recognized on August 18th are Bad Poetry Day, Discovery Day, National Ice Cream Pie Day, National Mail Order Catalog Day, Never Give Up Day, Pinot Noir Day, Serendipity Day, and World Breast Cancer Research Day.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. It's an opinion piece. Brad Cole, a federal increase in tractor trailer size is dangerous for Missouri. Christian County Sheriff Brad Cole says he's against legislation allowing heavier trucks to travel on Missouri interstates. By Brad Cole. There's a picture of a mostly bald guy with a kind of salt and pepper beard and mustache in a tan, it looks like a tan uniform shirt and black pants. Says Sheriff Brad Cole talks about conditions in the Christian County Jail in Ozark, Missouri, and the need for the facility to be replaced during an interview in his office on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Photo by Jim Wilson. My office works tirelessly to ensure the safety of our residents and visitors of Christian County. As sheriff, I make every effort to speak out when new laws are proposed that could negatively impact those efforts. As a result, I am deeply concerned about new congressional efforts against gaining traction to change federal law and increase tractor-trailer truck size and weights. In one such example, a U.S. House of Representatives committee recently voted against public safety and approved a measure as part of the so-called highway bill, increasing the weight limit from the current 80,000 pounds to 91,000 pounds. The effort now moves to onto the full House and the Senate. In another, lawmakers have introduced legislation to allow massive log trucks to operate on the interstates. The concern law enforcement has about bigger trucks is grounded in facts and experience. Federal data shows that from 2014 to 2024 in Missouri, the year with the most recently available data, truck crash fatalities rose by 44%. Additional data shows that from 2023 to 2024, truck crash fatalities rose by an alarming 20% in Missouri in a single year. This is completely unacceptable to law enforcement and further proof that we need to look for solutions to make our roads safer and not less so. Heavier trucks would mean more dangerous roads because heavier trucks require longer stopping distances, and the federal government already has proven they are less safe. One of the toughest jobs a law enforcement officer has is notifying a family that their loved one is not coming home. The devastation families experience hearing the news is unimaginable, and unfortunately, law enforcement has to conduct far too many of these calls. Increasing truck size and weights will only make law enforcement and first responders' jobs more difficult, placing the motoring public in more danger and resulting in more devastated families. Those who want bigger trucks claim they will only be traveling on interstates, but anyone who has traveled Missouri roads knows this is not the case. Trucks travel on local roads to avoid crashes and construction on interstates, to get to delivery and pickup destinations, and even to avoid way stations and law enforcement due to being overweight. Every state has a reasonable access law that allows them to use these roads for these activities. In addition to the House effort, lawmakers have introduced a measure known as the State Safe Routes Act. This would allow log trucks to operate on the interstates at the same weights they are allowed to operate on local roads interstate. The legislation applies to at least 20 states, including Missouri. Currently, log trucks can run up to 109,000 pounds on Missouri local roads, but can only run on the interstates at 80,000 pounds. However, if this legislation passes, it's more likely that every log truck running on the interstates will do so at the heavier weight. In addition, for communities adjacent to the interstate, they could be in the path where all log trucks funnel through in order to access the quickest interstate on and off ramps. Log trucks are some of the most dangerous trucks on our roads today. Increasing their weight will only put communities in more danger. Knowing all the threats that exist on our roads today, I cannot stay silent. I stand with the National Sheriff's Association in opposing this type of legislation and encourage our Missouri congressional delegation to protect our communities and stand firm against it. Our sole priority should be to protect and serve. Increasing truck size and weight does neither. Brad Cole is Sheriff of Christian County, past President of the Missouri Sheriff's Association, and the Traffic Safety Committee Chairman of the National Sheriff's Association.
Ozark moving forward with plans for a new $19 million police headquarters. Ozarks could have a new police department facility by the end of 2028. Ozark is considered an architect to design and plan a new 21,000 square foot police department. The facility will put an end to the Ozark Police Department's longtime issue of overcrowding, according to Chief Justin Arnold. Really what we need, we want, and what our community deserves is a purpose-built facility, one that not only meets the needs today, but is going to meet the needs in the future for years to come, Arnold said on Monday, August 17th. The Board of Aldermen on August 17th introduced the bill that would authorize the city to work with Kansas City-based Hoffer Welker LLC to design the police department's future facility. The budget for the project is estimated at between $18.6 and $19.1 million, according to the report from the city administrator. Previously, the board had voted to move forward with plans for the new facility in October 2025. The board will decide whether to give Ozark and the green light to work with the architect after the bill has had a second public reading at a future meeting. Ozark has contracted with Navigate Building Solutions to represent the city during the process of designing and constructing the new OPD facility. Since 2025, OPD had been operating from a 6,000 square foot property on Brick Street. Our most serious inadequacy that we have to figure out a solution to address is workspace limitations, Arnold said. For instance, OPD's report writing room is used by 23 different staff members throughout the day, Arnold said. Officers sometimes have trouble finding an available computer to use. Arnold said that the current facility has about 141 square foot of office space per staff member. He established that other local enforcement agencies that have adequate space for their staff to operate out of might utilize around 380 square foot per employee, based off his conversations with colleagues. Working in the crammed space makes it difficult for officers to find privacy and hold community meetings. The chief said a new police facility is one of the goals laid out in Ozark's strategic plan adopted in 2024. Although the Board of Aldermen voiced agreement on the OPD that the OPD needs a new facility, the October 2025 vote was split 4-2, with 2 aldermen opposed to the plan to use Ozark's 1/4 cent capital improvement sales tax for the project, funding the $19 million facility. Ozark residents in November 2022 voted against a 2.375% local use tax that would have funded public safety operations, including a new police department facility. City staff decided to explore alternative source of revenue for the project. Ozark expects to commit to a 30 years of debt service for the new police department. The city could issue $15 million in bonds for the project next year. To fund the remaining of the project, Ozark would draw an estimated $2.7 million from the city's general fund and $1 million annually from the city's 1/4 cent capital improvement sales tax. The 1/4 cent capital improvement sales tax helps fund projects like scheduled street and sidewalk repairs, parks and recreation plans, and public infrastructure improvements, according to previous reporting by the Daily Citizen. I just want the public to be aware that there are sacrifices that are being made, said Alderman Bruce Galloway, Ward II. We will not put the city at a financial risk, and that had been discussed, but we are trading. We are definitely trading. The city also plans to cut about $1.4 million from the project's cost by self-performing work on utilities, road, and site development, said Assistant City Administrator Cameron Smith. What will the new headquarters look like? Ozark is planning to develop a single-story building for the police department, although a 2-story building could be considered according to Ozark agreement with the architect. The city may decide to design the construct an animal control facility in the project, which could increase the estimated budget by about $400,000. Crews are expected to break ground on the new facility in the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2027, wrapping up construction around late 2028. In addition to Hoffer Welker, Ozark plans to partner with J&S Structure Engineers and BHC for the build. Zoe McIntyre, Ozark First.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. It says Springfield man admits to helping dispose of slain unsheltered man's body by Jackie Rewald. There's a picture of a guy with short black hair and kind of a salt and pepper beard and mustache. A picture of Shannon Phillips, booking photo by Greene County Sheriff's Office. The second of 3 men charged with being involved in the death of a homeless man last year, or at least helping dispose of the body, pleaded guilty on Friday. The body of the victim, 50-year-old David Koslow, was found in a ditch off North Farm Road 153, south of Farm Road 6, around 6:30 a.m., October 26, 2025. Koslow had 2 gunshot wounds, one to the abdomen and one to the head. Shannon Phillips, 49, pleaded guilty August 14th to the Class E felony of abandonment of a corpse. He also pleaded guilty to an unrelated drug possession charge. Phillips waived his right to a sentencing assessment report, and in accordance with the plea agreement was sentenced to 4 years in prison for each case, with those sentences to be served concurrently. There's a picture of a mostly bald guy with a blonde beard and mustache. The picture is of Paul Sarton, booking photo by Greene County Sheriff's Office. The man suspected of pulling the trigger, Paul Sarton, is charged with a Class A felony of second-degree murder, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a firearm, and abandonment of a corpse. Sarton is scheduled for a case management conference next month in Judge Jerry Harmison's courtroom. Christopher Key, 51, pleaded guilty to abandonment of a corpse in July. He he will be formally sentenced in September. Shooting happened at homeless camp. Koslow and the other men in this case were all unsheltered and known to frequent an encampment near the intersection of Glenstone Avenue and Evergreen Street in northeast Springfield. Before Phillips pleaded guilty on Friday, August 14th, the prosecutor explained that evidence would have been presented had the case gone to trial and painted a clearer picture of what investigators believe happened. According to Assistant Prosecutor Connor Harris, after Koslow's body was discovered in the ditch, investigators spoke with people who also frequented the encampment, who told them Phillips might have information about the homicide. Phillips was then interviewed by a detective with the Greene County Sheriff's Office. According to Harris, Phillips told the detective that on the night of October 25th, 2025, or the early morning hours of October 26, 2026, he heard gunshots. Shortly after he heard the gunshots, Sarton approached him and asked to go get some coffee. Phillips agreed and walked toward Sarton's vehicle, where he saw Koslow's body nearby. The defendant admitted to assisting in loading that body into Mr. Sarton's vehicle, Harris said, and then going with Sarton to the location the body was ultimately recovered to help dispose of it. Judge asks if victim's family notified. At the plea hearing Friday, Judge Todd Myers asked the prosecutor if Koslow's family had been notified. Harris said he wasn't sure and spent a few minutes messaging with Greene County Prosecuting Attorney's Victim Advocate Office to learn that they had not been notified. Harris told the judge that the victim's family was told at the plea hearing for Key, who was charged with the abandonment of a corpse last month, and they were not interested in attending that. There's a picture of a guy with kind of short salt and pepper hair with a salt and pepper beard and mustache. Christopher Key, booking photo by Greene County Sheriff's Office. I believe the majority of the contact and their interest is on the individual who's actually charged with the murder, Harris said. Before formally sentencing Phillips, Judge Myers said he wanted to circle back and just make sure the record is clear. There is no indication that Mr. Phillips was involved in the death of the victim. There is another individual charged with that murder, Myers said. Is that correct? That is correct. As I mentioned, Paul Sarton has been charged with that murder, Harris said. Jackie Rewald is a reporter at the Springfield Daily Citizen. She covers public safety, the courts, homelessness, domestic violence, and other social issues. Her office is 417-837-3659.
Liam Keating, Springfield news leader. Evangeline lends a hand to Missouri State football scrimmage with a road simulation. Casey Woods wanted to challenge his team in any way possible on Saturday, August 15th for the Missouri State football scrimmage. Woods took his players out of their comfort zone. Woods called upon Evangel head coach, athletic director Chuck Hepola for some help. We simulated a road game, Woods said. Coach Hep over at Evangel let us use their facility a little bit. Missouri State used Evangel's road locker rooms to change in before the scrimmage. The Bears also warmed up and prepared for the scrimmage at the Evangel. The team jumped out on the bus to Plaster Stadium before conducting the scrimmage on campus. They were a little bit out of their comfort zone all day, Woods said. They faced adversity. If they will come out here with the kind of effort, that kind of resolve, you have a chance to build off of what it is that we've got. It is just another unconventional way for Woods to challenge his team. The team will certainly play the road games this season, so why not practice like a road game? Missouri State first road test will pit them against SEC powerhouse Texas A&M on Saturday, September 15th. In other news, actress Hayden Panettiere dies at 36. Anakin Reed, USA Today. Hayden Panettiere, the former child actress, best known for her role in TV series like Heroes and Nashville, has died at age 36. Her representative confirmed her death to US Today on Sunday, August 16. TMZ was the first to share the news. It is with profound sadness that we share the tragic passing of our beloved Hayden. She was an incredible light and a force of nature who brought immeasurable love and joy to all who knew her. And to the millions who watched her on screen, her father, Skip Panettiere, said it in a statement. He asked for privacy as our family takes time to process this unimaginable loss. Panettiere, whose long and prolific career in TV and film began when she was a baby, had been vocal in recent years about her troubles with addiction and other effects of childhood stardom.
This is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. Mike Rakes is out at Evangel. The president was a prolific fundraiser, yet struggled to balance a checkbook. He resigned effective immediately, and no one has fully explained his rush to leave. His house is now up for sale. At a time of cost cutting and lost jobs, Evangel hired Rakes' wife and son and jobs created for them by Steve Pokin. 5 years and then poof, Mike Rakes was gone. He resigned effective immediately July 30th as the 5th president of Evangel University, founded in 1955. His Evangel tenure is filled with striking juxtapositions. He was a prolific fundraiser who, at the same time, in his words, struggled to balance Evangel's checkbook. As he cut staff and faculty to rein in spending, his wife and son were hired at Evangel and jobs created for them, which caused some employees to grumble. His house in the gated community of Highland Springs, just outside Springfield city limits, was listed for sale August 11th. There was no press conference about his rapid departure, no accessibility offered to the media. The private Christian University in Springfield has put out one press release about the resignation. It said it would provide no further information. Rakes, who was hired in 2021, spoke via that press release. He said that he leaves Evangel full of gratitude and that he and his wife Darla will turn their focus to a new venture, a business coaching enterprise called Pillar Stone. Rakes said the following in a letter to the Evangel community on his Facebook page. This decision has not been driven by a single moment, but by the growing conviction over the past year that my season of leadership at Evangel was drawing to its natural conclusion. On August 11th, he declined to speak to the Springfield Daily Citizen when contacted for comment on this story. The significant building projects in Rakes' tenure included Flood Hall, a new 4-story dormitory with 116 student rooms, and the Valor Center, the university's new 70,000 square foot state-of-the-art sports complex. The additions will have a long-lasting positive impact on the campus. Yet, Rakes failed to balance the school's operating budget in each of his 5 years here, telling faculty and staff that the school ran deficits of $4 million to $7 million in those years. The millions pledged to specific building projects cannot be used to balance the operating budget. In a March 11th meeting with staff and faculty, which was secretly recorded and provided to the Daily Citizen, Rakes said, Evangel had only balanced their budget one time in 2 decades. You can go check the audits. They're public. You can see. The Daily Citizen asked Evangel if that statement was accurate. The university did not respond. The financial problems were pressing enough for the Evangel Board of Trustees to hire about a year ago a financial consultant called CFO Colleague to help Rakes get Evangel's financial house in order. Before coming to Evangel in July 2021, Rakes and his wife had co-pastored an Assemblies of God church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Rakes had been a pastor there 15 years. He had ties to Springfield. He graduated from Central Bible College and the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary, which is part of Evangel. In the 1980s, he was a youth pastor at Central Assembly of God on Boonville Avenue. Evangel University's decision to say little about Rakes' hasty departure is not unusual. It is a private institution and is not governed by the state sunshine law regarding open records. Still, there is nothing in state law that forbids Evangel from being more transparent. Some of the information in this story comes from the annual Form 990 tax forms Evangel must file. Some comes from Rick Wedholm, for 5 years an associate professor specializing in the Old Testament at the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary, which is part of Evangel. Wedholm's contract was not renewed in April, only weeks before it expired. He provided the Springfield Daily Citizen with audio recordings he made when Rakes spoke to faculty and staff on November 17, 2025, and again on March 11, 2026. Evangel cut staff in recent years to balance the operating budget, while Rakes' wife and son were added to the payroll, a new position created for each. Darla Rakes became the ambassador to students and donors, and their son Braden was hired in 2022 to coach Evangel's first ever bass fishing team. July 19, 2022, Evangel University's news release states Braden Rakes, over 6 years, had been the leading money winner on the Big Bass Tours amateur circuit, taking home over $120,000 in prize money. A September 22nd, 2023 story in the student newspaper The Lance reported on the new bass fishing team. The reporter interviewed a freshman on the team. He said he had received a bass fishing scholarship from Evangel. According to Wadholm, he and other Evangel employees asked one question regarding the position created for Darla Rakes. Why? Why is she hired? What is she doing? Equally puzzling was the bass fishing team to be coached by Rakes' son. It was bizarre, and there was all sorts of discussions around campus, Wadholm said. Why are we doing this? Why do we have this? And of course, again, hiring his son to do it. Evangel reportedly eliminated 40 positions, 13% of faculty and staff. Earlier this year, the college cut 40 positions in an effort to save $10 million, according to a Springfield Business Journal report. That June 8th Business Journal story states, Evangel University has eliminated 40 positions, 13% of its faculty and staff, as part of an ongoing effort to cut at least $10 million in operating expenses by the end of the next fiscal year. Most of the 24 staff positions were cut by layoff or not renewing annual contracts, while most of the 16 faculty positions were dropped through attrition or not filling jobs vacated by retirements and resignations. For more than a decade, the story said, Evangel has been on a federal watch list of institutions with shaky finances. Rakes compensated at $518,628 in first full year at Evangel. Despite those shaky finances, Evangel paid Rakes a total compensation of $518,628 in his first full year, according to the school's federal tax return. He was Evangel's highest paid president ever. Robert Spence was president from 1974 to 2013, and in his final full year was paid $219,091. Carol Taylor, the school's first female president, was in charge from 2014 to 2020. In her final full year, she was paid $239,225. The Springfield Daily Citizen sent 12 questions to Evangel on August 11th, including one asking for an explanation or elaboration on Rakes' 2022-2023 salary of $518,628. There was no response. Rakes' annual compensation decreased after 2022 to 2023, but his wife and son were added to the Evangel payroll. Rakes' compensation for 2022-2023, $518,628. Rakes' family compensation for 2023 to 2024, Michael Rakes, $355,060. Darla Rakes, $59,093. And Braden Rakes, $23,817. Total, $437,970. Rakes' family compensation 2024-2025, Michael Rakes, $365,012. Darla Rakes, $67,232. Braden Rakes, $44,250. Total, $476,494. The Form 990 tax return for the 2025-2026 year has not been made public. Bought Highland Springs lot months before when he says he was first contacted about Evangel job. Rakes has said he initially was not interested in the Evangel president's job when he was first contacted about it. On March 11th, according to an audio recording, he told faculty and staff, May 11th, almost 5 years ago, I received a call from Doug Clay, who was representing the search committee, and invited me to come in to interview with Evangel, and I said no. Clay is Chief Executive Officer of the General Council of the Assemblies of God. He sits on the Evangel Board of Trustees. He is the top official, General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God in the United States. Greene County property records show that Rakes bought a lot in Highland Springs on January 20th, 2021, 4 months before he says he was first contacted about the job, and 6 months before he was hired. The property is where Rakes subsequently built a house. Evangel was asked for an explanation and whether it was possible that Rakes knew as early as January 2021 that he had the job. The university did not respond. Rakes put his house up for sale August 11th. According to Zillow, the asking price for the Rakes home is $985,000. The listing states, here's your opportunity to own a nearly new home in the highly sought-after Highland Springs subdivision that at an incredible value, built in 2023 and offered at $200,000 below its recent appraisal value. The home combines space, quality, and location. Seminary professor who was let go refused to sign non-disclosure agreement. Rick Waldholm, 49 of Republic, these days makes several trips a day to the Springfield Branson National Airport. That's because in his struggle to make ends meet, he's become an Uber driver. Since July 1st, he also pastors a small church in Billings part-time. For 5 years, he was an associate professor at Evangel until his annual contract was not renewed in April. His annual salary was $74,000. Waldholm has a doctoral degree in Old Testament and theology from Bangor University in Wales in the United Kingdom. Prior to coming to Evangel, he taught at Trinity Bible College and Graduate School, where he was also vice president of academics, so he knows firsthand the administrative side of running a Christian college. The college is in Ellendale, North Dakota. When his contract was not renewed, Waldholm said, Evangel asked him to sign a non-disclosure agreement. The document, which he provided to the Daily Citizen, is labeled as a separation agreement. It states in part, employee agrees to keep the existence and contents of this agreement confidential and not to disclose the existence, terms, or conditions of the agreement except to the extent required by law to any person other than to her spouse, if any, attorney, or tax preparer. Employee agrees that before any disclosure is made to her spouse, attorney, or tax preparer, employee will advise the person receiving the disclosure of the confidential nature of this agreement and will secure the agreement of the person receiving the disclosure to maintain the confidentiality of this agreement. Employee agrees not to make disparaging comments about Evangel or any of its current or former employees. In the event Evangel believes that such comments have been made, counsel for Evangel will contact the employee, who will then take immediate steps to ensure compliance with the non-disparagement provision of this agreement. Employee and Evangel further agree that any breach of this paragraph is a material breach of this agreement. In that separation document, Evangel agreed to pay the remainder of Waldholm's salary, $6,197, and to continue his debtor's 90% tuition discount at Evangel through the fall semester of 2027. Waldholm refused to sign it. I'm not opposed to NDAs as a rule, he said. I'm opposed to NDAs for something like this. I'm like, what are you trying to hide? What do you not want me to talk about? What is it you wouldn't want me to expose? So why would you even put it out there and then try and hold my paycheck over me and hold my daughter's funding over me for this? Nevertheless, he said, Evangel paid him the remainder of his salary and continued his daughter's tuition discount. The Springfield Daily Citizen asked Evangel if the use of NDAs is now standard operating procedure at Evangel. The university did not respond. Rakes, it's not that I haven't tried. Waldholm's observations from within Evangel over the past 5 years lead him to believe that Rakes was likely forced out. To be clear, no one else has said that, but the university has said nothing about the reasons Rake left in such a hurry. In contrast, Presidents Taylor and Spence, who was at the university 40 years, both gave notice and helped with the transition to the new president. Here are some of the things Rakes told faculty and staff on March 11th, according to a recording made by Waldholm and given to the Daily Citizen. Our deficit has always been red ink, and so it can vary between $4 million and $7 million in the red. One year we got a check near the end of the year for $5.8 million to put into the checkbook to cover that. So one question you might think is, gosh, with all of that inaudible fundraising you've done, can't you raise money for the checkbook? It's not that I haven't tried, but when we're talking about the donors, they have to trust and have confidence in the president that he can balance a checkbook, that what we take in as a university, we don't overspend that every year. So that's the pivot that you are seeing. By the time we got to July 2027, we were planning on being in the black. He tells staff he fought to keep tuition discount for children and faculty and staff. On the same March 11th meeting, Rakes announced the end of Evangel's tuition discount for children of employees. He said it was the board's decision, not his. Before I read this next line, I want you to know that this was a board decision, not my decision. In fact, I would just say I advocated to preserve this benefit. I didn't want to see it go away, and I made that case to the decision makers strong. But ultimately, as a group, a collective group, they reached a different conclusion. So beginning this summer, the Board of Trustees is eliminating the employee tuition discount. Rakes told faculty and staff Evangel was at a pivot point on how it managed its finances. With the threats that I see that are coming toward Christian higher ed in the years to come, the loss of possible Pell Grants that might hit students in the years ahead, I think this is the God ordained pivot for us to continue to strengthen who we are to get our budget finally balanced. I'll be able to look donors in the eye and say, yes, we are paying our bills, and we are able to employ these folks to do this. We are not a church, so we don't live on donations. We are a business. Here are some of Rake's comments recorded by Wadham, made to faculty and staff on November 17, 2025. Our net tuition revenue is so far off. We're nowhere near close to living in the black when it comes to what we charge students and what we take in. So obviously, we will make adjustments coming up on that. We're going to continue to just pivot and grow as best we can. Our model, the model that I used as a vice president at Southeastern, is the same model we use here. It's the same model we used at ORU, and that model is not working. Rakes was vice president for student development at Southeastern University, an Assemblies of God institution in Lakeland, Florida, from 2000 to 2006. He once served as chairman of the board of trustees at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa. The thought was when I came in, if we get more students, we'll have more marginal revenue at the edges. It's been the opposite. The more students we get in, the more in the red we went, and dramatically so. So we have 70 programs. I'm getting the data, but we have 50 that just have a few students in them that aren't anywhere close to the black. So we have to reassess that. The board is not doing this from the mountaintop. I'm owning it. We're not a church, so we don't live on donations. We are a business. Enrollment headcount, not necessarily best measure of enrollment growth. Rakes wrote on Facebook in his letter to the evangel community that we celebrated 5 consecutive years of enrollment growth, reaching the highest enrollment in university history. A September 25, 2025 Evangel press release states that in the fall of 2025, Evangel set an all-time enrollment record of 2,741. That figure represents a headcount of students. The press release quotes Evangel Vice President Wade Mumm, who oversees the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary. This kind of unprecedented growth is only possible through God's favor and the hard work of so many people, our faculty, staff, alumni, and church partners. Much of the enrollment growth has been in the seminary, according to the press release, where there was a 23% increase year after year, from 335 to 414, the largest single-year gain in its 52-year history. Mumm incidentally pastors Greenway Church in Orlando, which was founded by Rakes in 1996. Mumm flies back and forth weekly between Florida and Springfield, according to Wadham, who once worked for Mumm. A logical question seems to be, if there's been continued enrollment growth, how is it that the university continues to struggle with annual operating deficits? In part, it's because there's a difference between headcounts and full-time equivalents, according to Wadham, who once was vice president of academics at Trinity Bible College and Graduate School in North Dakota. If you were to ask any president or any institution about student enrollment, they will give you the student headcount, Wadham says. But maybe there are students taking a half-credit course, like choir or something like that. They still count as one student in a headcount, he said. Maybe it takes like 10 students to equal a full-time equivalent because they're taking so few credits. Full-time equivalent is a truer rubric of actual income. Most institutions want to tell the facing public headcount numbers, Wadham said, but they're required to tell the full-time equivalent to the Department of Education and to accreditors. The Springfield Daily Citizen reviewed the Department of Education numbers. They show that undergraduate enrollment in recent years has been relatively flat, according to the full-time equivalent figures. Unfortunately, the most recent numbers available are 2 years old. They're from a 2025 report for the year that started in 2023 and ended in 2024.
Help Starts Here campaign looks to curb panhandling in Springfield. New sign posted at key intersections are part of the City of Springfield's Help Start Here campaign to cut down on panhandling. Signs have been posted at 10 city intersections where it's common to see people holding handmade placards and asking for donations. The sign tells drivers it's okay to say no to panhandling. Support local organizations that can help. The campaign was the brainchild of council member Callie Carroll, who said in August 14th interview that she had observed similar signs in the city and approached nonprofit leaders about the idea of a similar effort in the Queen City. Carroll noted the goal is for people to give their donations to reputable charities that help impoverished people rather than make a donation for an automobile, as the practice risks accident and injury for those involved. While the sign stops at encouraging motorists to bypass giving and providing the general guidance to support local organizations, the campaign is explained in detail for those who seek out its website. Instead of giving cash at intersections, support organizations that provide food, shelter, treatment, and pathways to stability, the website states. Partner organizations are listed with links telling donors to give. Those organizations are Crosslines Community Outreach, United Way Ozark Region, Victory Mission and Ministry, and Community Partnerships of the Ozark. The campaign centers on public information through videos, social media, and webpage with links to nonprofit partners. In my mind, I saw the need in terms of safety hazards, Carol said. People weaving in and out of traffic is not safe for pedestrians. It's not safe for motorists. There are so many other better ways to give. Carol said nonprofit leaders told her that the panhandling as a big problem in Springfield. We can encourage people to give to get people's broader needs met, she said. The initiative began in the council's community involvement committee, which Carol chairs. The body deliberated the issue for more than 2 years, she said. We wanted to do it right, she said. Goals were to be directed in messaging while also being sensitive to the issue, Carol said. She stressed that the campaign does not change any laws in the city and instead relies on communicating with the people who want to help others. Other communities have been positive results from this, she said. In addition to the traffic signs at intersections, businesses are invited to reach out if they would like to sign erected on the property, Carol said. Right track. Carol said the feedback she had received from nonprofit leaders and other members of the community tells her that the effort is on the right track. Jason Heisen, Executive Director of Victory Mission and Ministry, said homelessness is an expense that taxpayers are already bearing through medical treatment and emergency departments and involvement of the Springfield Police Department and helping people find the appropriate place to sleep. In the nonprofit space, we understand that realities around the situation, he said in an interview with SBJ. Heisen said Victory Mission provides a drug and alcohol-free environment for people who are trying to emerge from homelessness. I can't think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs if I'm stuck in an active addiction, he said. Heisen was referring to 5 priorities outlined in the pyramid shaped by late psychologist Abraham Maslow. At the base of the pyramid are psychological needs like air, water, food, and sleep. Next in line is safety, love and belonging, status and esteem, and finally, self-actualization. Addicts disrupt the picture, according to Heisen. Heisen said Victory Mission provides 2 meals per day, a bed, a shower, a nurse visit, and mental health counseling. It's a place of healing, not you being on the corner getting $20, he said. Maybe you made it through the day, but tomorrow you'll still be there. Health Policy Research Organizations, KFF, formerly the Kaiser Family Foundation, states homelessness increased nationwide more than 30% from 2019 to 2025, with 746,000 people experiencing sheltering and unsheltered homelessness on the night of the 2025 annual point-in-time count overseen by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That included 266,000 unsheltered people. The 2025 count shows 24% of the homeless people met the standard of serious mental illness and 18% had a substance use disorder. Heisen said that people's hearts hurt when they see a person in need, sometimes with a dog at their side. The sign says they're trying to raise money for the wife who has terminal cancer. He said, what's true? What's not true? What's a marketing angle? Michael Van Hoos, who lives in Sparta but works in Springfield for a nonprofit AIDS project of the Ozarks, said that in a Facebook thread that she gives to individuals in need and doesn't worry about the possibility that she is being scammed. I give people money, she said. I figure if they are cheating me, it's between them and God.
Thank you for listening to the Blind Community Thrift Store Radio Reading Service. Tune in every week, Monday through Friday, on the Blind Community Thrift Store's YouTube channel at 10 a.m. for more up-to-date news from the Springfield News Leader, Springfield Daily Citizen, Springfield Business Journal, and 417 Magazine. Listen after we are live on the Audio Reader Network at www.reader.ku.edu. All broadcasts are played over KSMU subcarrier airwaves at 67 kilohertz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for information on receiving a pre-programmed radio.